Hello and welcome to my DDD deck profile for August 2020. So I've been playing this deck a lot. I really like it. I took it at locals the other week and I went X1 and I would have went X0 if I had a single more card on my field. But I'll explain more about that there. But yeah, let's just get into it. So first of all, I play 3 copies of DD Swell Slime. DD Swell Slime, sorry. So what this card does is it lets you fusion summon using cards in your hand. Uh, yeah, fusion summon using cards in your hand. You can then banish it itself from the graveyard and special summon another DD monster from your hand. Which this is one of your mains. This is 9 times out of 10 either the first or second card you'll play. But yeah, it's really good and it kind of brings the deck together. It gets the deck rolling. Uh, Next, we play 3 copies of Necro Slime. So Necro Slime's similar to Swell Slime. It only has the first effect of fusion summon, and this uses materials in your graveyard by banishing them instead. So it works quite well with another card, which is in the deck, which I'll get to later. Uh, Next, we play 3 copies of DD Lamia. You have to see this, or your combo is normally just swell effect, necro effect, pass normally. Uh, so what this does is, well, it's a level 1 tuner, so it helps you with all your synchro players. Uh, you can send a card from your hand or field to the graveyard to special summon itself, but it gets banished when it leaves. But what a lot of people don't realise is you can't send pendulum monsters like either on the field or in your pendulum zones. You can send them from your hand, but you can't send them because they would go to the extra they'd go first up in the extra deck, and you wouldn't be able, and it wouldn't have met the requirements. But yeah, probably one of the best cards in the deck. It wouldn't be anywhere near as good without this card. Then we play 2 copies of DD Ghost. This is the card that goes really well with basically any banish effect, really. So when it's sent to the graveyard, it can foolish a card that is already in there. So you can get yourself a second copy of Lamia, Ghost. You probably won't want Swell because you want to use its hand effect. But yeah, and any of the others, you can just, and then if it's banished, you can target another banished DD monster and return it to the graveyard. So that's really good if it gets banished for like a fusion summon or for something else. So yeah. Then for the pendulum monsters, which are there's 2 sides to the pendulum monsters. There's the savants, which normally get your stuff from your deck, and then there's the DDD main deck monsters, which they have similar effects to the extra deck monsters, but they're just big high level monsters with decent attack. But yeah, so first of all we play Kepler. So what Kepler does, while he's a monster, you can either, when he's normal or special summoned, you can either add a Dark Contract to your hand, or you can return a DD or Dark Contract from your field to your hand. And then when he's a pendulum scale, he says that I think most of the savants say you can only pendulum summon DDs, but so every turn his scale goes down by 2, and he destroys anything on your side of the field that is equal or greater than his pendulum scale, apart from DD monsters. So he's okay. You kind of want to, so in my version of the deck, we do play cards that are quite high level that aren't DD monsters. So you kind of want to get rid of him. You'd only really put him in the pendulum scale if you need to pendulum summon. But yeah. Next we play Ragnarok. Bolivian King Abyss Ragnarok. So his effect is when he's normal or special summoned, you can target a DDD, not just DD. So it has to be a DDD monster in your graveyard and special summon it. Then you can also tribute another DD monster target a monster on your opponent's side of the field and banish it, which is really good. It's one of my games against Orcus. They end on Dingasu and whatever, and you just summon this. Uh, Deal with that's normally IP. You deal with IP, and then summon another card, tribute that other card, banish Dingasu. But yeah, and then in the pendulum scale, it's basically the same as its first effect, but when another DD monster is special summoned, pay 1,000 life points, special summon another DD from your graveyard, but you take 1,000 damage and your opponent takes half damage. So going first doesn't really matter too much, unless you're against like an OTK deck like Dinos or something. You probably won't want to use it. So then for the two of, we just play 2 copies of Savant Copernicus. So he's just Foolish Burial, and then yeah, he's just Foolish Burial for a DD monster. And then when he's in the Pendulum scale, he's a scale 1, which is really good. He pairs quite well with well, basically any of them really. If you take damage by like from an effect, you can destroy this card instead. And then for the one-ofs, we're playing one Apocalypse. So Apocalypse is really good. He's kind of situational, but he's essentially just, as long as you have, so when he's in the scale, he can banish 2 DDs from your graveyard, special summon himself, which also pairs well with Ghost, because then the Ghost can just return the other one back to your graveyard, and it's basically just a 1-for-1 summon, but you've lost a card in your graveyard that's not doing anything for a level 7 monster, which works really well with the extra deck. And while he's a monster, during your opponent's turn, if this card's either in your hand or your graveyard, you can destroy 2 face spells. They don't have to be continuous, so I've once done it where Chainlink 1, they activate an effect, Chainlink, and like they discard a card, or they're going to use an effect that involves the graveyard, Call by the Grave. Then I chain this, destroying Call by the Grave and a Dark Contract that I wasn't going to use for the next turn, summon himself by destroying those 2 cards. So yeah, he's really good. And then the final DD monster that we play is Orthus. So you should never you're in a bad position if you ever have to summon him. So his pendulum scale is really good. He's basically Raigeki Break, but instead of discarding, you destroy a DD or a Dark Contract on your field as well, so it fills up your graveyard. And yeah, when he's a monster, he can summon himself if you take effect damage, but you're locked into DDs, so you either want to normal summon him if you have to, or try and wait as late as possible so you don't like get affected too much by his lock. And then for the non-DD monsters, we play 3 Token Collector. So there's multiple reasons for this. The first reason is, well, Token Collector is really powerful anyway now because of Synchro Eldritch, Adamancipator, Infernoble Knights. It just completely stops their turn, especially if they go into Auroradon. They'll really struggle after this. But also, what you can do is, if you happen to open the Perfect Hand, which to be honest, it's probably the only deck where you can open 5 cards and be like, oh wow, this is the Perfect Hand. So what you can do is you can normal summon him, and you can't be Nibiru, which is really good. And then he actually serves a third purpose, where, well, I'll talk about the third purpose later. But yeah, so his effect is if a token is special summoned, on the resolution of that effect that summoned it, you can special summon him from either your hand or your graveyard, so he's really good because you can come back. You can dump him off like Foolish Burial and stuff like that. You summon him, and then when he's special summoned, he destroys all tokens, and while he's on the field, neither player can summon tokens, so he's really he's good while tokens are in the meta. So because Aurora Dawn and because Linkross and All Iron exist, that's why he's really good. And I decided to play him over other hand traps because this deck's only really got enough room for one playset of hand traps, and Ash doesn't do enough on its own. I do play in the side deck, but it's not enough on its own. So yeah, and then the final monster we play is Buster Whelp, because we play darks and we play dragons. So I think everyone knows what he does. While he's equipped, your opponent can't summon from the extra deck. But yeah. So on to the spells. So we play quite a bit of spells. We don't play any traps. I used to play a couple, but I decided not to. So we play 3 Dark Contract with the Gate. So all the Dark Contracts, well, most of them have the effect where during your standby phase you take 1,000. Some have more. I think there's one of them that doesn't, but has a different effect. So this one is, unfortunately, you can't use it on activation, but you activate it, and then activate its effect to search for any DDD monster and add it to your, any DD monster and add it to your hand. So that's really good. It's basically just raw but once per turn, so it's actually ridiculous. The only issue is obviously loses to more hand traps than just Ash. It also loses to Ogre and stuff. It loses to Cosmic Cyclone, Twin Twisters, but it's a once per turn raw. Or if they don't deal with it, you just keep getting resources every. It basically just says draw, then get whatever you want from the deck. Then for the other one, because we only play 2 Dark Contracts, we're playing Dark Contract with the Swamp King. So what this card does is, it's almost like Invocation. It lets you fusion summon from your hand or field to summon fusion summon a fiend monster, or if it's a DD monster, you can banish from your graveyard as well. And then it also has the effect where you take 1,000 damage during your standby phase. But yeah, and then the rest of the deck is basically just consistency and like good going first cards. So for the draw power, we have 3 Allure of Darkness, draw 2, banish a dark. 3 Pot of Desires, banish the top 10 face down, draw 2 cards. It's really good. Pot of Greed. We do play a lot of Garnets, but we play enough that the odds of you banishing all of your one-ofs are really unlikely. But yeah, and then for the final draw card, we play 1 copy of Upstart Goblin. It's a magic card, this one. But yeah, your opponent gains 1,000, draw a card, just makes it a 39 card deck. Then finally, the last 4 cards, we play 3 Call by the Graves and a Foolish Burial. Protection from hand traps, and then just consistency, get whatever you need into the graveyard. Because the only issue with this deck is it doesn't have any 2 card or 1 card combos, it's all 3 or 4 card combos, so you have to play a bunch of cards that get you into the 3rd and 4th card and potentially any further. Fortunately, all the cards, they're all extenders, but they all have specific like requirements and stuff that makes them a bit more difficult to use than most decks. So it is a very hard deck. It took me about a week just to learn the basic combo. But yeah. So now onto the extra deck. I try to make this as even as possible. You don't have to. There's a lot of cards you can cut. I'll go over them once I've gone through them all. So for the fusions, we play 2 copies of the Little Genghis. Move that over a bit. Of the Little Genghis. So what he does is when a DD monster is a normal or special summon. No, I think no, he has to be. They have to be special summoned. He gets another one back from your graveyard. So a lot of them do that, and then he has the effect of when he's destroyed by battle or card effect, you can add a card, a Dark Contract from your graveyard back to your hand. Then we play them over here. Then we play Big Genghis. He has the same fast effect, but his is on normal summon as well, and he can during your turn. It's the only issue is if he said during either turn, he'd be ridiculous. But he kind of helps. He stops you from being like impermed. Once per turn, you can just negate a spell or trap, but only on your turn. Then the final fusion that we play. This card can only realistically be summoned with Dark Contract with the Swamp King. So it's with Oblivion King Caesar Ragnarok. Uh, uh, what he does is he's essentially a borrow lord. Sorry. So if your so if your opponent has more than one monster, you attack into one, then you target a DD or Dark Contract on your side of the field, add it back to your hand, and then equip another monster, and it gains attack equal to its original attack. So if they don't have any negates, you just attack into their smallest monster, bounce a card, and then equip their biggest one and do a lot more damage. This would have won me against dinosaurs. So I think their board was 2 Ultimate Conductors and another monster. I think it was some extra deck monster. Uh, so they attacked into this, and if I had, so they destroyed my other monster, my weaker monster. They attacked into this. If I had another Dark Contract or something, in fact, I think I had the Dark Contract in my hand. If I'd used that, I would have activated its effect, bounced the Dark Contract, equipped the other Ultimate Conductor. So this would have been on what, like 6,700, something like that. Would have destroyed it, and I would have won the game on the next turn. But yeah, so that's it for the fusions. I try to make it balanced, so there's 4 of each apart from the link. So for the synchros, we play Alexander. He is basically the same as the small Genghis, but he works off either normal or special summon. But the one he summons from grave has to be level 4 or lower. He doesn't have an effect when he's destroyed, but he's really good combo piece. You normally go Genghis with Lamia into this, and then this in another card into a card that I'm going to talk about later. Then for the other DD synchro, we play Siegfried. So what Chaos King Siegfried does is he targets an opponent's he targets a spell or trap on the field and negates its effect for the turn, and this is a quick play. So you can use this against like other like quick play spells, and like it negates them even if they're not continuous. So it'll negate a Pot of Desires. Obviously it won't work against Dark World because of its effect, but yeah. And then when it gets destroyed by battle or card effect, you gain 1,000 for each Dark Contract on the field. So then for the other synchros, we play Crystal Wing. Really popular card. I actually didn't realize until playing this deck that it needed a non-tuned synchro monster as its material. So what this does is, once per turn, negate a monster effect, then destroy it, and then if you do destroy it, it gains attack equal to its original attack, and then if it attacks a level 5 or higher, it also gains attack equal to that original attack. So at minimum, this card's it's a bit like Borrow Sword. It's always doing 3,000 damage. It's just to a point harder to get out than Borrow Sword, but it does give you a negate, so that's really good. And then the final one is Omega. With Dogmatica, I decided to put him in instead of, I think I did have Borrow Sword in, but I decided to put him in just to deal with that, to shuffle whatever card, because I didn't have enough room to put Nova and Mechaba in. But yeah, he lets you shuffle back while he's in the grave. You can shuffle back, and unless they permanently negated for the turn, like with a Call by the Grave, it's not once per turn, so you can just keep trying and trying. If they keep negated, you can just try again, add it back. Yeah. So while it's on the field, you can banish this card and a random card from your opponent's hand till the end of the turn. I think it's the end of the turn. Or until your next standby phase, sorry. So if you do this, you can do this like during your main phase, and then it's gone for basically 2 turns, that card in the hand. Then it also has a second effect, a third effect, where during your opponent's standby phase, you can return any banished card to the graveyard. This includes face downs. So if you've banished an important key piece, let's say you've banished Apocalypse from the like off Pot of Desires, you can return it with this card and then get it back using its own effect. So that's it for the synchros. For the XCs, we play. So this one you don't have to play. I find it's really good when you brick, when you only open swell slime and necro. So you swell slime into the small Genghis, then you necro into another copy of small Genghis, then you overlay into Caesar. So what Caesar does, he's probably one of my favourite. I actually love some of them. It's a shame there's no consistent way to end on both him and the rest of the board. So he needs 2 level 6 fiend monsters. So if there is a way to summon more level 6 fiends, like I guess you could do it with dog or like the new one, but the new cards aren't that good. So what he is he's solemn warning, but not once per turn. So potentially, if you can somehow keep adding material to him, like for instance, if you had a time thief engine and you summoned Perpetua, you could just constantly keep adding to him. So every turn he'd get another negate. Also, if he does negate and destroy the card, he can non-targeting increase the attack of another DD monster by 1,800. So I've had a game. It was against Blue Eyes. We were both on about 500, and my board was literally just that and that. I tried to summon Ultimate Dragon. I negated that. He activated a fusion spell. I negated that. I think it was just Polly that he used. So this card was on 3,600. So and then because I have no more, I was like, oh, okay. So then he activated a card. I can't remember what the card was, but it special summoned the normal Blue Eyes, and he tried to attack. And it was on Dueling Book, so we were just there, and I was like, nothing happened for a while. And he's like, oh, are you going to take the damage in surrender? I was like, but you've lost. And I had to explain to them it was actually no, it was on 37,000, and he quit the game. It was only game one, so people get salty. People don't read cards. People don't know what this deck does, but this deck's amazing. So yeah, then we play Caliuga. Probably the best boss monster. Doesn't come up. He's good for pushing for game if you have enough attack. So when he's summoned, he instantly negates. As long as his summon is successful, he negates all cards on the field for the entire turn. Unfortunately, it includes your own. But yeah, you can detach one material from him to destroy all spell and traps on the field. Then you can detach another one. Then you can detach another one to add a dark contract from your grave and set it, I believe, is what he does. Yeah, he sets it. So that's really good. I was playing the High Gust King Alexander, the level 10 synchro, where if there's 3 or more he gains 3,000 attack, but it doesn't work well with him, and also it's level 10, so he's a bit awkward to make. You have to use probably level 8s in Ghost, or Lamia and then another level 1. It's just a bit awkward to make. But yeah. Unfortunately, I get him in common, but I do plan on rarity bumping him. Then, for the generic ones, we play Hope Harbinger. Once per turn, negate a spell. One of the spell effects activated, negate it and attach it as material. Then if your opponent declares an attack, detach a material, force the attack to go onto this card, and then go straight to damage as straight damage calculation. Yeah, and go straight to perform damage calculation. So this skips the even against Construct can't out this card because it skips the part of the damage step where it would activate, because it activates on declaration and skips to perform damage calculation. Then finally we play the Dingyasu. I do have the ultimate rare, but I'm not going to play that. I'm going to keep that in my binder, nice and pristine. But yeah, we play it. Just 2 level 8s. When if cards on your field will be destroyed, detach material. When it's summoned, banish. Equip a banished. Is it a banished card or banished machine? So it has to be a banished machine. So you're probably not going to be equipping anything to it, other than maybe if somehow one of the link monsters that I'll talk about gets banished, or just send it to grave. I'm sure you all have very, very terrible nightmares and flashbacks to Orcust format. so everyone knows what that card does. But yeah, now on to the Link monsters. We play Gilgamesh. So Gilgamesh, it's quite an interesting card. He came out in Dual Overlord. He kind of helped extend the combo quite a lot for this budget version because I don't play Needle Fiber. Honestly, if you do play Needle Fiber, you could probably replace him, or maybe I'd take out the Dingasu or something like that. So when he's summoned, you can set your Pendulum Scales from your deck. Then you take 1,000, and then you're locked into DDs. Then if he's destroyed by battle, but only if your opponent declared the attack, or card effect whenever. Is it opponent's card effect? Oh no, so it has to be opponent's card effect. You can special summon any DD monster from your grave or extra deck. So I think initially it's meant to be like bring back a Pendulum monster, but the way it's actually worded means you can literally force out a card like. So Kali Yuga doesn't work, but you could force out the big fusion monster. You could bring that out. Unfortunately, it's in defense. If it was an attack, this would be amazing. But as it stands, it's okay. It's not the best. Then we play Cross Sheep. Everyone says it. Everyone knows. He's the best. He's the best sheep. It's basically a DD monster because it does basically the same thing that they do. So if you depending on what's summoned on it, you can activate. So unfortunately it has to activate all 3 effects. So like technically, is it apply? Yeah, so it's apply, which means technically even if you summon an Xe or a Synchro to where it's pointing, or a Ritual or where it's pointing, it can still be Ghost Augured. Not Ghost Augured. Well, yeah, it can be Ghost Augured, but can be Ghost Belled or whatever that stops graveyard effects, cards that bring back from the grave. Yeah, so when a monster's if it's pointing to a lot of people don't know it's not just when a monster's summoned. It's so if you have a fusion here and you synchro summon here, you can still activate both the fusion and the synchro effect. So the fusion effect is if it's pointing to a fusion monster. In fact, if it's pointing to a fusion monster, special summon a level 4 or lower from your from your graveyard, and then if it's a synchro, all your monsters gain 700 attack. If it's an Xe, all your opponents lose 700 attack, and then if it's a ritual monster, you draw two, then discard 2. So that's pretty good, but we don't play ritual monsters, and I don't think any ritual deck actually plays this because most ritual decks lock you out of the extra deck. And then finally, I was debating originally whether to play this, but since it got a reprint and it was like dirt cheap, I bought the Dragon Buster. So we play 1 Union Carrier. You normally make this with, depending on what you're doing, you either make it with Cross Sheep and Token Collector because they're both Earths, or you make it with just 2 DD monsters because they're all Fiends. But yeah, that's it for the extra deck. Just move these out of the way and we'll move on to the side deck. So the sides, somewhat, to be honest, it's just your standard side deck. Nothing too special. 3 Ash Blossom, probably still the best hand trap, but unfortunately by itself it doesn't do enough. 3 Lancia, well, Dinosaur's just top. Dinosaurs are really powerful. I'd Emancipator banish, Eldritch banish. Every deck banishes somewhat, but mainly for dinosaurs. But yeah. Then two Nibiru. I only own 2. I probably wouldn't play. It's okay in this format, but again, dinosaurs doesn't bother them because they can just play Misk. Eldritch don't summon. They either have a negate by the time they're on the 5th summon, or they don't summon 5 times at all. And then Emancipator, it's a rock, so it works well with their deck, like the token. But yeah. So it's good, but sometimes you don't want to draw multiple copies because it's quite literally a brick. But yeah, then if I was playing going second deck, I'd 100% be maining this. Uh, Gamma. So Gamma is amazing. Just negates and destroys. You use this on Azold. You use this on Needle Fiber. You use it on. You probably don't want to use it on a graveyard effect because then they're not really losing resources. They're just losing an effect. But if you know that it's going to stop them, then you can. But yeah, so destroys any, and then so it does summons both of these. This one from your hand and this from anywhere except banished. If it was banished as well, this card would be broken completely. But yeah. But yeah, it's probably the best. Negates a monster effect, destroys it, and then summons two. Even against Numeron. So this card is just free against Numeron. So if you have this in your hand, they activate Zexal, normal summon. Not normal summon. Use its effect. Summon these. Then, if I was playing Needle, like it basically says it changes Zexal's effect to your opponent special summons Needle Fiber from their extra deck. That's basically what this card says. Like, it's just free Needle Fiber, free anything really. 3 Omega, 3 generic. You can even potentially make, if it's summoned on your turn, you could potentially make a Savage with it. But yeah, but it does get they both get banished during the end phase of that turn. And then finally, we're playing 3 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. Yes, they are. They're all different sets, and one's shiny. It's probably just the best spell and trap removal. Eldritch and Infernobles can just recur their spells and traps. Or they can use their effects, like with Eldritch especially, can use their effects in Graveyard. It just ends up being so much easier to just pay the 1,000 to deal with them, because otherwise, if you use Twin Twisters or MST, you use it, they'll probably activate it anyway, unless it... So if it's one of the Golden Lands, not Golden Land, like one of the Conquistador or the Huquero, they will probably activate it. They probably won't activate it, and then they'll just get a search during the end phase. Or if it is, they'll activate. Probably it'll be Spartus or summon Eldritch from the deck, and you've basically just then during the next turn they'll go add a Huero or Conquistador, and you've basically just went -2 off it. So whereas this is a 1-for-1, and it's best removal. If it was any card, it would be going in the main deck, but yeah. So that's it for the deck. I do quickly want to show a small combo. I know this video is getting quite long, I'll probably edit it down. So the combo is DD Swirl, Necro, and Kepler. So if you open these 3 cards, that just give you enough room for like an Extender or a Hand Trap or Call by the Grave. So what you want to do is you want to activate Swell Slam's effect, sending both of them to the graveyard. Fusion summon into Little Genghis. Move him up here. Then what you want to do is you want to normal summon this guy, activate his effect, adding a Dark Contract with a Gate. So then you want to activate that and then use its effect, and you want to add a copy of Lamia to hand. So that's in your hand now. You want to banish Swirl, special summon Lamia, Genghis effect, special summon this guy. Then you want to synchro summon into regular Alexander. Then straight away link summon into Crush up here or here. It doesn't really matter. Then you want to use Necro's effect and realistically, unless you have, I don't know, another one that's in your grave somehow, banish Genghis and itself, fusion summon into the bigger Genghis. So then what will happen here is Cross Sheep's effect will activate, and it will bring back Lamia, which will then trigger the big Genghis's effect, bring back Alexander. So then you synchro these off again into not Siegfried, into in a Crystal Wing. Then you have two options here. Obviously, depending on your extenders, you could go, but so you can either go these two into Union Carrier, and then equip this with the Buster Whelp, or what I'm going to show you is so you want to link summon these, so that goes to grave, and then that's over here in your extra deck face up into this guy, Gilgamesh. So then you want to activate Gilgamesh's effect. So in your skills for this specific combo, you want Apocalypse and a copy of Ragnarok. So doesn't matter where they go, just there and there. Then what you want to do from here is you want to activate Apocalypse's effect. So you want to banish. You'd like to keep your Lamia in there, so you want to banish the 2 extra deck monsters. Special summon himself. So you've taken 1,000 off this guy, and you're locked into DDs. Now you have two options here. You can either trigger Ragnarok's, take it over 1,000, or you can Lamia, getting rid of either this card or this card. But for this, we'll take 1,000 off that. Special summon. It's a level 7 and a level 1. So that goes to extra, that goes back to grave. And then we end the turn by synchroing Siegfried. So if we had Needle Fiber, it'd be a much better board than this. It'd be able to do a lot more on your opponent's turn. So, but what we have here is, the only issue is we have no way of getting Cross Sheep off. But with the floating effect of Gilgamesh, that's fine. You fusion summon, bring back Lamia and stuff like that. So, but yeah, so we have is a monster negate, a spell and trap negate. This will heal you if it leaves the field for 1,000, and this card, it'll float, and then you can either go into a synchro, give all of these extra attack, XC, reduce your opponent's cards, and so on. But yeah, so that's it for the basic. Been quite a long video. I'm gonna hopefully cut it down a bit, but yeah. Thanks for watching. Bye.